Trump or whatever, but I think it is impossible to argue that there has not been strong progress on the right on these issues significantly in the last 5 years, and really the last 2 or 3 years.
Got it. So 2 things before we move on to Matthew. I could tell Alex wants to say something. But also, just so folks know, I looked like some audience members were like bursting with things that they wanted to say. I wanted to let you know that we will have time for questions at the end.
Wonderful.
So hold your feelings and your questions. Matthew, do you want to add anything?
I mean, I echo Guy's sentiments, especially watching. I remember watching that speech, that convention speech by Peter Thiel, and as someone, as I mentioned earlier, who, you know, had come out a lot of years earlier when the Republican Party would never have the person that was presenting the candidate for president be openly gay, call out the party. I mean, let's not forget, he actually called out the party in that speech and said, stop it with these transgender bathroom issues. Let's focus on economics. Let's focus on the things that make the country work and that people vote for Republicans on, not getting into these social issues. And he called out the party on that. And you know, not enough is said of that. And I was emotional about it because it felt validating for all the work that I try to do within my organization, within the party, to make the party better. And I think that both of our sides, whether you're on the left or you're a Democrat or you're on the right, you're Republican, need to make both of our sides better. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, both sides, the LGBTQ community should have a choice who they vote for and be able to feel good about it, right? And there's work that needs to be done on both sides in different ways. We're trying to do our work by engaging, and I've seen the efforts of that. I've seen where the party's gone. I joined Log Cabin in 2012, and I remember even just where we were then as a party. I remember going to my first state GOP convention, and we weren't a chartered organization yet. Log Cabin Republicans, which has been around since 1977, still wasn't a chartered organization within the California Republican Party. And we had been fighting for it for a long time. We finally did it in 2015. And there were, you know, we were nervous about it, but 75% to 80% of the delegates in California voted to support us for chartering. 2 years later, we were up for rechartering, and it was basically a unanimous vote. So even in 2 years, it had gone from 75-80% to basically everyone. No one stood up to oppose our nomination for chartering. We have, as my vice chair, Gina Roberts, who's trans, who has met with Betsy DeVos, who's met with members of the administration, who's actually going out there and meeting with people who wouldn't necessarily, you would think, would be understanding or open to anyone who's trans, and she's just being honestly herself and saying, hey, you know what, I like to go to the range and fire a gun, I believe in tax reform, I believe in this, but I'm also trans. So let's start with the first couple issues and talk about where we agree on that, and then let's actually talk about, you know, where we maybe don't, but find some common ground. That's how we've moved the country forward on any issue. That's what we have to continue to do in the Republican Party. There shouldn't, to walk away from it, as I've had a lot of friends tell me, you should just resist, you should just walk away from the party altogether. I don't think that's the solution. If you believe that the last journey of equality lies on the Republican side, the only way we're going to get there, because they still win elections, as we know, is to change their hearts and minds by going to them and by sharing our stories.
This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say coalition building. Like, the Republican Party has done nothing to advance anything over the last 20 years. I mean, I do feel that way, but it's like, when I hear you say that, I think, God, like, we need you. We need you. So, like, we need people like you guys to go back to your party and help, you know, be the voice that draws the party more towards our direction. You know?
But it's not their responsibility alone.
No.
And I think that progressives, I'll say Democrats, because I'm sitting here just trying to think as I listen, and I got to say, I feel a little bit bad. I don't like the fact that we have put these two on the spot as Republicans to defend.
We're used to it.
No. I think but that's a problem, and I think that's a problem that sometimes I forget all the damn time what I'm talking about. But we forget as Democrats and as liberals or as progressives or as conservatives, both sides do it. So I went to a high school and interviewed some high schoolers after the election was over, and I sat with two groups of kids. We brought them together. Some supported Trump, some had supported Hillary Clinton. And the Hillary Clinton supporters were really, really angry at the Trump supporters and were very upset that they could dare. There were some Muslim supporters of Hillary Clinton. They were very upset that those Republican students could dare ever vote for Donald Trump when he had said such horrible things about people who were Muslim. And how dare they? They must be Islamophobic. They must be racist themselves. And so I finally asked one of them, and I asked him a question. I'm going to turn it around right here, because for me, I voted for years for candidates because they supported same-sex marriage, because they supported gay issues. For me, I'll admit I was a one-issue voter sometimes, and that was my priority. It was one of my big priorities, admittedly. I don't know what your biggest priority. I don't know why you're a conservative, why you're a Republican, but if I get upset at Guy because his priority is lower taxes, doesn't that just make me mad at him because he's not putting my needs before what are his? You know, if your priority is lowering taxes, or you want right to own a gun, or take it into a school or a park or whatever.
Well, that's kind of snide.
See, I forget. I don't think it's okay for any Democrats or any especially gay or trans Democrats to be upset with someone or not upset, or to question someone and make them defend why they are a Republican. Because everybody has issues that we prioritize, and certainly the two Republicans on this panel have the right to vote on the issues that are most important to them. And I don't agree with all Democrats. I don't agree with all Democrats, and I can't imagine you agree with all Republicans.
No. And I just say, I think one actual sign of progress is that gay people and LGBTQ people don't have to be single-issue voters. We're free to have open minds and our own set of priorities. And to your point, and I really appreciate what you just said about needing folks like us within our coalition, within our party, that's great. I agree. It would be super helpful if some folks on the left stopped attacking us as self-loathing or mean-spirited.
And stop attacking Trump the same way.
I promise you. My boyfriend will tell you the same thing. We have a nice life, and thank God. And the thing that I would add, because this goes both ways, I also know that I would not have the freedom to think about one day proposing to my boyfriend, right? Or living a normal life as a gay man in America without the very hard work of lots of people who would never agree with my politics. Gay rights activists on the left. I have to thank them and be grateful to the hard work that they've done. So I want to pay homage to them and take my hat off to them, and also say, now let's have sort of the toleration and the space work in both directions.
Guy, I promise to take that back to the left. I will take that back to the left.
I'm gonna ask Tara her thoughts.
Yeah,
I think Tara was trying to get in.
I mean, I think a couple things came up during this conversation. One is clearly, it is great. I think the work that you all are saying, that is happening in the Republican Party, and that's moving forward. But it's not enough for Donald Trump to say, I support LGBTQ equality, when his actions are directly opposed to that. And I mean, we've already listed that. And I think that when it gets to this notion of I grew up in Texas. I grew up in Texas, interacted, almost everyone around me was a Republican. But the issue isn't you're Republican, so you hate LGBTQ people. I don't agree with that. But I think the issue is, if you're a Republican and you can't call out that actions that are Islamophobic, that are anti-LGBTQ,
which ones?
Then it is a problem.
I think we're seeing this environment where everything has become so hyper-partisan that people would sooner side with Vladimir Putin than they would, go against their own party. And that's what we're seeing is happening a lot. And I think that's what you're saying is absolutely right. At the same time, we have to have people within the Republican Party who are willing to say, what you just said is bullshit, Donald Trump. Like, transgender people can serve in the military, and that shouldn't even be an issue in 2017, and you're hurting America.
I think we heard that. I think we heard that though this week. We heard a lot of Republican senators come out and say this is
Orrin Hatch. Orrin Hatch would never have come out and defended members of the military being trans 5 years ago, and did this week.
I'm also just so gratified to hear you endorsing Governor Romney's position on Russia.
And healthcare.
Can I just add one thing? I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't totally disagree. But where I do disagree is that I think you have to ask yourself a question: do you get more by resisting and saying I'm not going to be part of it, or do you get more by engaging and trying? And what I do say is that while you can point to some things this week, and you can point to some things so far in the administration that have been a step back on LGBT equality, what was, as we heard in the intro, what was said to us that was going to happen hasn't happened. I mean, not everything. And there was certain things, we were told when he won that he was going to fight marriage equality, and that was the thing that he was going to do. And part of marriage equality, federal protections, the religious freedom law, getting rid of the State Department position that looks at LGBT issues, some of these things are still in place and hasn't been worse. Is because that we have been trying to engage. We've actually, our group has had a seat at the table in some of these discussions and made the case for why they shouldn't get rid of some of the work that had been done in the previous administration. So what I just say to those is it's the administration that's in power. I'm not telling anyone that they should support Trump or that they should like him or whatever. I'm just saying it's the administration that's in power, so you have to work sometimes with those that are in power. And our group, and I know myself, I've lost plenty of friends who've just said the fact that you will even engage with the enemy is a reason I can't respect you as an individual. I've had it happen at work. I've had people tell me this. Ugh. That's not where the dialogue should be in this country.
That's what guys are right about.
Endofdiscussion.com.
Okay, just to say, I'm going to ask one more question, but just a suggestion for folks who want to ask questions, I suggest you start lining up at the mics over there. I had a question that I think is too big and weighty, but I'm not sure we can.
Just go to the questions, absolutely.
Well, all right.
Just go to the questions.
I'm going to respect the voice of the people.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Do it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Whatever, I'm like an ACLU, some free speech stuff. So,
absolutely.
I actually, I'll close. I'll leave a minute or two to close, but because there is such an interest in questions, I think we have about a little under 15 minutes left. Let's take some questions.
Yep.
Should I moderate? Should I do this? Okay, I'll call. Oh, don't be offended because that line's longer. I'm going there first. Go ahead.
No, okay. First of all, I want to say thank you, Politicon, for bringing both sides this year instead of just one side. We needed to hear everything. But this year, LA Pride decided to have an anti-Trump parade instead of having a gay pride parade.
That's right.
How are we still calling ourselves a community when we ostracize 14% of the community? And also, I wanted to ask, how do people on the left seem to have co-opted the title LGBTQ and always speak on behalf of the entire community when they only speak on part of the community? They ostracize the other part. So how are we still a community, and how do people decide that they're the ones that speak on behalf of the entire community?
I mean, I think it's an important question, and if you look at exit polling from the last 4 election cycles, so dating back to 2010, between 14% and 29% of self-identified LGBT voters voted Republican. So that's somewhere between, not quite 1 in 5 and almost 1 in 3 LGBT people voting Republican. So again, we are part of the community, and it's important to recognize that. I appreciate even though some of the stuff that he's done I don't appreciate, especially, I mean, is there anything more insulting than announcing a non-policy bizarro thing on Twitter in 3 tweets without any thought or explanation? Like that really, really upset me. But like, I also give Trump credit for trying to talk about these things a little bit differently. He was, even during his acceptance speech at the convention, he would slow down really slowly to get the letters right. LGBTQ. and just like, you know what? Props, man. You're trying a little bit here. That does not necessarily overshadow policy, but cultural signals matter a lot, and Trump is trying on that front. And so even though I'm not a big fan, I did vote for him, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not going to give the guy credit.
He's a never-Trumper.
So thanks for the question.
Oh, jeez.
Does anyone want to take the other piece of that, or? I can't. Well, I can step out of modern.
I guess one thing is, I actually thought it was billed as a resistance march. And so people were able to come with all sorts of different things that they were resisting. I think some people were quite explicitly resisting Trump, but not everyone. We are a large community, and sometimes parts of our community might identify more closely with other parts of their identity. Right? So it's always an ebb and flow.
Thank you. Speak up over the cheering.
Good? Okay. So I do data science. I've worked with various campaigns and firms analyzing data. Notably, a bit that's really hard to get is actually LGBTQ data, because it's an odd question to ask, hey, who are you dating currently? And what is their gender? So my question is, do you think the American census should ask about your sexuality? On one hand, there's the fears of a radical group might use that to target these people. On the other hand, it might give a true, accurate representation of what percentage of the American community that is. There's been debates if it's 2%. There's been some plans it can be as high as even 10%. So what's your opinion on that? Especially because there are people in the crowd who are much more libertarian or discuss that there's even a census that's being asked of their opinion.
I mean, I think just from a logistical standpoint, there are complications to that.
It's distinctly anti-Trump up here.
Some people who are straight would have to be willing to not answer the question in order, because otherwise, let's not pretend that anyone who didn't answer it would not be,
You would obviously that box that checks straight, bi, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I don't know that you would necessarily get an honest answer. If you would ask me, if I had been filling out the census for myself when I was 22, I would have lied like hell. So you're going to get a lot of, I don't think, as someone who's a data scientist, I think is what I heard you say, yes. I don't think that you would have very credible or reliable data on a question like that. I think that's just my
right.
I'm of the mind that they should. Okay, if you are taking a census, if that census is going to happen, then yeah, you should. And if people are going to be dishonest, well, I mean, that's fine. But I think when we're talking about cultural signals, it's a part of the product of moving the country forward and representing that community in a census, is important, I think. And if we're not all the way perfect or all the way accurate, that's okay. I think it's just moving us towards normalizing it so that it's not such a strange thing anymore.
I just want to add real quick, this is why I think absolutely and why it's so important, because funding is very connected to the census. And so one of the issues that we have experienced is that essentially we don't have data. And so when we go for federal funding, when we go for state funding, and they're like, well, what's the percentage that lives in this community? What's the percentage of people who's impacted by that? We only have anecdotal or smaller based surveys, and that is like a real barrier to services.
Thank you.
Hello. My question is in regards to the gender pronoun issue on college campuses. So I just wrote down a little something. The U.S. Constitution states freedom of speech. It does not specify whether speech shall be cheerful or hateful, just free speech. Our social construct of free speech does not include threats or incitement violence, and any of these acts should be held accountable. The term hate speech is a moral concept, and the term hate involves judgment or morality. And the concept of morality is all subjective. So morality is objectively uncertain because everyone will have a different personal view of morality, obviously. So this is why the term hate speech does not exist on a universal objective level, rather just a subjective personal level. By claiming hate speech, there's no basis on what's considered hate, so everybody's version will be different. So it doesn't really solve the problem by just stating hate speech. So let's see where I'm at. So by making the claim hate speech will not be allowed, the people in power will always dictate what is considered hate. So you will see this throughout history with the Soviet Union, with Joseph Stalin, and the genocide of the Kulak farmers, and with Nazi Germany as well. So everybody has their freedom of speech, but they're not free from criticism. You can protest speech.
Okay.
Question.
I don't want to sorry.
Question.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting to the conclusion.
I think I know what you're getting at.
So basically, so sorry, but
your point is about LGBT.
Yes, I don't want to be disrespectful, but
you're being disrespectful.
Sorry, sir.
You're being disrespectful.
I'm being disrespectful?
Why?
Yeah, sorry, sir. I believe in, so I believe the beauty of America is that you can be what you want to be, say what you want to say, and do what you want to do. And
yes.
I'm sorry to say this, but, my family dedicated their lives to serve the United States military, and my father served 24 years in the United States Marine Corps, so I believe in
Can I assume what your question is going to be and try to answer?
Sorry, so my question, the basis of it is, if you believe that I don't have a right to say and be involved in somebody's personal life, which is that's what I agree, why must I be involved in it? So as far as the gender pronoun issue goes, if I don't want to be involved in somebody's personal life, why is it like making me be involved by saying specific types of pronouns? As long as you're not disrespecting anybody, I don't get what the problem is.